immunity from liability as long as they are protected under this legislation, and the results speak for themselves. It's not just a war against Donald J. Trump. Conservative voices find themselves being silenced, and I know this, and banned from many platforms. Until a David stands up, we are all subject to the Goliath. What else happened this week? Good news, Texas. It is being reported that one of Trump's federal judges, that's good news, has temporarily blocked Biden's 100-day deportation moratorium after Texas sued the Biden administration. Federal Judge Drew Tipton issued the order after Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sued Biden's administration last week. Paxton called the executive order unconstitutional and stated that it violated the agreement between the Department of Homeland Security and the state of Texas. Quote, within 6 days of Biden's inauguration, Texas halted his illegal deportation freeze. Paxton tweeted after the order, said this was a seditious left-wing insurrection, and my team and I stopped it. Judge Tipton's order is effective for 14 days. The January 20th memorandum not only fails to consider potential policies more limited in scope and time, but it also fails to provide any concrete, reasonable justification for a 100-day pause on deportations. Tipton wrote, despite Tuesday's setback for the Biden administration, they are planning to issue more executive orders on immigration this week. Texas is not done fighting back. And yesterday, State Representative Kyle Biderman filed House Bill 1359, HB 1359, the Texas Independence Referendum Act that opens the door for Texans to go to the polls in November and vote for Texas to become an independent nation, launching a hashtag Texit on the heels of Brexit and Blexit. Biderman said this act simply lets Texans vote. This decision is too big to be monopolized solely by the power brokers in our capital. We need to let Texans' voices be heard. Voters of all political persuasions in Texas can agree on one thing. Washington, D.C. is and has been broken. Our federal government continuously fails our working families, seniors, taxpayers, veterans, and small business owners. For decades, the promises of America and our individual liberties have been eroding. It is now time that the people of Texas are allowed. So there you have it. The people are now being shown. This is what's happening, folks. When you review some of the material we covered here, when we see AOC and Ted Cruz and Don Jr. coming together on an issue, there'll be many more of these things because the people are now being shown. We're looking into the reality of life under this Biden CCP administration. People need to be shown, not told, and they're beginning to have the experience with nearly 40 executive orders written in just the first week, where the last half a dozen presidents combined didn't have 40 in the first week. We see the border policies loosening up, the wall being no longer being built, and I believe those are 10,000 or probably far more than that, people that are now unemployed. The lockdowns are happening. The economic hits are going to be felt pretty significantly down the road from policies and executive orders like cutting the pipeline and oil and gas exploration, 60, 70, 80, 90,000 layoffs in that industry alone now, plus the spikes in oil and gas you can expect later, reverting back to the Bush and then Obama Biden policies. The assault on free speech is racing forward, censorship racing forward, coming after all MAGA supporters, all peaceful, law-abiding, freedom-minded patriots in America. This is Biden and CCP's plan. This is UN Agenda 2030. This is Klaus Schwab's agenda. This is it. It is here. It is front and center, the force of vaccinations. And if it's not mandated, well, then they'll have policies where you will not be able to fly domestically. You already can't fly internationally without certain papers. This is going to encroach that you will not be able to function soon. And then the good news about this is people have to be shown. They're being shown right now. The pain is being inflicted upon two people. First and foremost, being inflicted upon us because we're the subjects of this. The American citizen who's used to some semblance of our constitutional rights and our civil liberties and our freedoms. We now see that going away, and the boots of tyranny right on our neck. And it's getting scary, and it's growing. We're getting very concerned, and rightly so. So we have to see this. More importantly, 80 plus million who voted for Trump, the ones who didn't, and I'm not talking about the left-wing loonies, forget about them. I'm not talking about the complete evil monsters. I'm just talking about your neighbors that you go shopping with, our neighbors in life that are Democrats and perhaps didn't vote for President Trump for one reason or the other. They voted for Biden. They're waking up now, and this has to happen. They're waking up. And so what's happening is more and more and more people over the hours, days, weeks, and short months ahead. I've had enough. And, remember that old thing with Bush? Do you miss me now? Okay. Trump, do you miss me now? That's what's happening, folks. It's a phenomenon. And it's happening all over the world. They're protesting in Norway. Italy's government's falling. Things are happening all over the world. People are standing up to the tyranny. But here at home, which triggers how it'll all play out for the rest of the world, as far as I'm concerned, the good news within a lot of the bad reports that we're seeing, and it's dark right now, but there's plenty of light, and I'm going to close out with that. But one of the pieces of good news here, from my perspective, is that awakening. The people, more and more is now being exposed. I get it. People like you and me, I'm preaching to the choir. We've been awake for a long time, maybe 20 years, 30, maybe 4 years since Trump arrived, maybe last month. People, the rest of them are starting to see it now. You can't hide it. Wait till the days and weeks come. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And the good news there is more and more people will see it as we go from 50 to 60 to maybe 70% or more of the American population that have had it up to their eyeballs and get it. Perhaps that's when the military will go from covert operation to overt operation. Because if they go for the jugular right now and remove the belligerent occupiers point per military code 11.3 and 11.4, maybe the country's not ready yet. Certainly the media is not on our side. And I read the DHS report. You could see what they're doing. So perhaps, one man's opinion, perhaps they're waiting till more and more people are with us. So there isn't civil unrest, because then the military has to deal with two things: removing the belligerent occupiers and getting them off to Gitmo for their trials and taking over the emergency broadcasting system to put the D-class out for the world to see. And then if it is civil unrest, then they have to deal with that at the same time. Not a good plan. So that's just my opinion. Let's see what happens. But I'll tell you what, we had some very, very good and powerful shows this week. You'll want to catch the show with Sean Morgan from the Sean Morgan Report, joined James Grunwig and I, and laid down all the anomalies on screenshots and everything. It's truly remarkable what's happening. You have to question these things. You have to question why the White House and the monument went dark for 2 hours and why the police were circling around. You have to question if you go to TomTom or Google satellites and you plug in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and you see that it says permanently closed. You have to wonder what these things mean. You have to wonder why there's 10 square mile radius of fence with a lot of the wires facing inside. Makes one wonder. Should ask some questions. Makes one wonder why we still have military troops. And recently, I believe there were another 700 troops deployed in Washington. There are no riots. They're not even allowed there. It's fenced off. What's happening, folks? And don't forget, the president said, we will never surrender. We will never give up. I will see you hopefully sooner than later in a new form. I've laid everything down. Everything's in place. Well, we were in a state of emergency. We still are. Did the president sign additional documents, perhaps, giving control to FEMA and the military? We'll find out. But something's going on. Ask questions. Look. Follow our program. Tune into the X22 report and some others that are out there doing good work. Stop taking cheap shots at us, okay? Question these things. Question these things. More and more troops. Don't forget the story I've told all week on the show, and in case you missed it, Juan O. Savin, I spoke with him before Joe Biden was inaugurated, because I was in the camp saying we would prevent the inauguration and go for the military operation, then reveal the true vote count, sort all that out, and get back to business. But it didn't work that way. Juan said, sit down. Got news for you. Joe Biden's going to be inaugurated. And I almost fell off my chair. And I said immediately, I said, well, in my opinion, without the military, we're never going to get the country back. If we lose control to the military, to Joe Biden, it's over. And he told me before the inauguration, he said he's not going to get all the keys to the castle, and asked that I don't broadcast that at the time, and I didn't. Well, now we've broadcasted it because now we know that to be the fact. Even Politico reported it. So we covered this all week on our program with Lieutenant Scott Bennett and a variety of guests, and James Grunvig and I. So I encourage you to listen to the shows. But at the end of the day, folks, Biden doesn't have all the keys to the castle. And there's a reason the military is out there. And there's a reason that the White House is surrounded by fencing. And there's a reason why that street has been permanently closed. Connect the dots. And listen to your President Trump. He's never let us down. Promiseskept.com. Remember his parting words. And then on the golf course yesterday, what he said. So the majority of people are beginning to see what's going on. Lynn Wood last week in an interview, which ForbiddenKnowledgeTV.net broadcast, stated basically, in essence, the military has everything under control. Lieutenant Scott Bennett, you've got to read his piece, got approaching 300,000 reads. It's a short article. It's a directive, really, because Lieutenant Scott Bennett spent a better part of 2 weeks with General Flynn's team and many, many others in Washington, and was privy to a lot of military information. And you need to read his article and follow his suggestion of what we can legally and lawfully do with that article. And so the military has all the evidence of the theft of our nation and the election theft. So we got this, folks, but it's dark. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But I do believe there is a light at the end of that tunnel. And I believe the military is in control. And then everybody asks, well, why aren't they just arresting? Well, I hope I lay down some of the reasons why. This is dangerous and risky business. Everything has to be done at the right time with every precaution taken. And that's what special ops in the military and others think about, war game out, and planned out a long, long time ago. So remember, the president just said yesterday on the golf course, Mr. President, someone said, I could see the president perhaps in the golf cart looking, and the gentleman says, you heard the audio. The gentleman says, thank you, sir, for your service to this nation. And Trump said, we're not finished yet. All right. So everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, folks, it's just not the end yet. So hold the line, America. Hold the line, patriots. Stay the course. Trust the plan. That's right. Trust the plan. General Flynn, do you trust General Flynn? He said on a scale of 1 to 10, Trump will have his second term. Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, many people. Trust the plan, heed the call, and remember, where we go one, we go all. It's not over yet till the fat lady sings. And guess what? She's not singing.